Everybody heard me say 3. Welcome, everybody. It's Wizard Week here on Plus One EXP. We're a real little brand that multi-classes in tabletop game design, beard and skincare alchemy in the Bardic College of Content Creation. We do a lot of different things here on stream at Plus One EXP, but this week, we're having a wizard moot every day of the week. We are spending each day of Wizard Week talking about a different wizard in a different part of 7-part Pact, which is live right now over on Kickstarter at ttrpg.link. Number 7, letter P. That's ttrpg.link/7pp. Right under Che's beautiful face down there in the corner is where you can go to check out this amazing game that has been crowdfunding, smashing through stretch goals. We're in that middle of campaign long haul. J Dragon, why don't you tell us a little bit more about who you are and tell us about 7-part Pact?
Well, hello there. My name is Jay Dragon. I am a lead game designer at Steve Jackson Games and editorial director at Possum Creek. I am the creator of 7-Part Pact, an innate, fantastical wizard game about the 7 great wizards in this fantasy world. We have talked about all the other ones, so many of the people tuning in have heard us talk about the Necromancer, the Mariner, the Faustian, the Sage. Now we're going to talk about the Sorcerer, who watches over the rest of the Pact, who conducts the Pact and ushers it towards goals of building something more than just surviving. Yeah.
Awesome. Excited to be here. It's been a good, wonderful, long week hanging out with some of our favorite people. Excited to continue that tonight. As always, we've brought a couple of professional wizards on, sorcerers extraordinaire, to talk about their experience with the Pact. Really excited to dive into that. Just a reminder, if you are watching live and you've got a question you want to ask, feel free to toss it in whenever. We will have a dedicated time for them at the end, but I'll pepper them in as they make sense. Also, so don't hesitate or hold on to those. Commentary is always welcome. Also, feel free to go share the stream on Blue Sky or any Discord servers that you are a part of and excited about. Let people know we're celebrating the final day of Wizard Week here on stream. I think that's everything. And if there's something else, we'll figure it out as we go. Let's meet our intrepid wizards for today, our sorcerers. Let's start with Che. Che, why don't you tell people who you are, what you do, if you want to be found online, where they can find you?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Che. I am sometimes a game designer, less and less, unfortunately, and more a grad student. I study a bunch of stuff that y'all don't want to hear about, but among it, games and wizards and magic and conspiracy theories. So that's a different conversation, although I do think it makes me qualified to talk about Pact and maybe the Sorcerer specifically.
Yeah.
I am on Blue Sky at s-che at bluesky.com. Nope, not at bluesky.com. I don't know what that is. S-che though, which is most of where I am on the internet right now, unless you have my phone number, and then you can find me.
I'm finding you on your phone number.
Awesome. Super excited to have you on with us. Tell us a little bit about your experience playing the Sorcerer, just high level stuff, and then also, what's one of the Sorcerer's items and humble magics you wish you could access in your own life?
So the Sorcerer was either the first or the second wizard I ever played, and that would have been in something like November of 2023. Jay, I don't know if you remember. I think I played a necromancer with you. You've played. I'm not going to ask you to throw your brain back 3 years to some playtest session of this game, but I think I played the necromancer and then I played the sorcerer way back then. Although at that point it was not called the Sorcerer and would not be called the Sorcerer for like another 2 years. It was the librarian at that point. And I think it always sort of interested me because I guess it's the most wizard of the wizards. You know, there's a real sorcerer centrism that I think it's possible to get into with 7-Part Pact, or that I have fallen into anyway. Maybe other people would disagree. As far as the humble magics and the special item, I'm a big fan. Sorry, was it humble magic and an item, or was it item?
Yeah. Look, here's the deal. People have just kind of chosen two things all week long, and I have not corrected anybody a single time.
Well, I'm gonna pick a trapping and a spell. No, I'm a big fan of the like most Saruman coded edges of the sorcerer, the like honey sweet voice and the like fine scents and robes and this kind of feeling of like a perfumed nobleman. And then yeah, I think in terms of I wasn't thinking about humble magic. I don't know. I guess that is actually that the voice is a humble magic. So yeah.
Awesome. Any one of those weird items they've got that you you really love?
I am a big fan of the mechanical man, and I'm a big fan of the silver box with your heart inside it. These are like
Excuse me, say the full thing.
oh sorry. I'm a big fan of the silver box which contains a golden box which contains your still beating heart. I do actually think I had read Catherine Valente's Deathless right before I played 7-Part Pact for the first time, and I remember having this like, oh, haha.
Yeah.
I've read the books that Jay Dragon has read moment. Many, many such moments.
Many such moments.
Awesome. Well, super glad to have you with us. Excited to dive into the long history of the development of the Sorcerer with you. Also, too, Irene. Same questions: who you are, where you're from, where people can find you on the internet, what you do, and then Sorcerer stuff.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Irene Zielinski. I am a game designer from Atlanta, Georgia. The day job is game developer at Steve Jackson Games. And I do other projects along the side. Honestly, right now, a lot of it's just been like local drag performances. So,
like talk about your Wesley Crusher drag, because that's what people showed up for today.
Yeah. Yeah. I played an earlier version of the Sorcerer, but not so early that it was called the Librarian. At sort of an all-weekend extravaganza. And you know, it was very intense and transformative. And I was very excited because I had been sort of lusting after the mechanics of the Sorcerer when it was called Librarian, and I got the game and I was like, what is this? Yeah, but
yeah.
Awesome.
I think the newest version has found the balance between those older mechanics and the newer ones you played with. I think I had to kind of go fully one way and then come back the other way, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So Irene, same question. What's one of the humble magics and what's one of the items from the Sorcerer that you wish you could bring into your own personal life?
Yeah, as far as the items go, I think he's got a cloak. He can have a cloak that has like sort of infinite pockets for useful tchotchkes. And I'm always carrying a lot of tools, so that appeals to me. And as far as the humble magics go, I'm a sucker for the like sort of small illusions always. So it's got to be that one.
Awesome. Super excited to dive in with you also too. Jay, so let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit more about, like, we have already alluded to, the Sorcerer has undergone a lot of changes. Tell us a little bit more about who this Sorcerer is, the tones, the themes, why they matter in the Pact.
Yeah. So, do you want me to read the first paragraph?
We should have someone do that, and it can be you because I haven't let you do it all week long.
I was gonna say, I wanna.
You want to do it? All right. Yeah. If you can read the
him.
first paragraph in the Book of Truth.
Behold the Sorcerer, known as Watcher of the Truth. Excuse me. Yeah, that is right. Watcher of the Truth, Crown Bearer, and the Great Lord of Magic. He commands the operations of the Pact and builds upon them, recovering the secrets of forgotten days and elevating the Pact to ever greater heights. He is oft of a wizened and arrogant temperament, and his fate is governed by the sun and the metal gold. Legends say the first Sorcerer was the last of the Wizard Kings, and it was by his hands that the tragedies both began and came to an end. So the Sorcerer started life. There were kind of two. There's the moon wizard and the sun wizard, and I struggled a lot with. I think the sage concept emerged, and then the sorcerer concept, the librarian sorcerer. Originally, the two wizards were the librarian and the sorcerer, and the original sorcerer was trying to build a tower up to heaven, and I kind of had this thing where he knew that he was in an RPG, and he was building a tower up to heaven to somehow escape the RPG and enter into the real world. And that turned out to be a little much for someone. I learned that there were certain limits to the game, and I think that having that be like a central character concept was one of them. And so that kind of turned conceptually very much into the sage. And then the librarian was kind of this ugly duckling for a while, where the mechanics weren't really any good. And I ended up renaming, at first the sage named the anchorite. I took the name of the sorcerer, I gave it to the librarian in hopes of kind of giving the librarian some life. This new sorcerer still wasn't quite there. I tried for a while this kind of magic cop approach, which Irene, you were the one you played in one of the playtests, where the sorcerer was basically kind of catching people casting spells and kind of getting them for it, and like you collecting kind of like magical information to like gather research. This kind of became more and more about kind of like building this, building up knowledge, building up influence. I figured out I was like, oh, the sorcerer is kind of building things, right? I was kind of returning to that idea of building things. The current version of the sorcerer, which kind of finally coalesced together in the most recent draft, is focused on building things. He has got this kind of Factorio style university management sim, where he has researchers who bring in knowledge that he has students process into and he has researchers turn into reagents and tomes, which any wizard can, if they ask the sorcerer nices for it or spend a week of time on it, can collect that magic to use in their own, to enhance their own spell casting. And then the sorcerer can also use it to improve the grimoire for everyone and kind of add additional utilities to spells and kind of enhance things. And so that was kind of the version of the sorcerer I settled on, was kind of this building up this kind of elaborate machine of producing resources and extracting them from the rest of the pact.
Love it. So a little bit more of an engine building concept in the final iteration.
Yes.
Which this is the iteration we played at our local Philly game, right? Cool.
Yeah, that's the one Shay played. Yeah.
Super fun to see. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. The sorcerer, I think, is my play with Shay in that game is some of the most fun I had playing 7-Part Pact. I played a lot, but the interactions we got to have, which I touched on a little bit earlier this week, were super enjoyable. And I'm super excited to hear a little bit about their experience on the other side, because it was great hearing y'all kind of realize things at the table, which I think is, again, we've talked a lot about the overwhelming nature of the game, the amount of information, the choices you're making, and then almost all of our guests seems to have this moment of kind of coalescing of, oh, I'm doing this, or oh, here's a thing that's happening, or oh, there's this other thing in the other part of the board, or that I'm suddenly taking. And so those realizations coming from both inside about choices you've made in the past that are flavoring your play, or outside, oh, there's this other thing that matters deeply to what my character is all about. I think has been on full display all week long. I'd love to kind of talk to maybe our guests a little bit about that. Have y'all had moments, do you have a moment you can think of and play from the sorcerer, from any iteration of it, or even from another wizard, where you kind of had that aha moment? Shay, you want to go first?
Sure. I can feel Irene and I trying to decide who's going to go first. I think a lot, actually. I've been thinking a lot lately about the game I played with you, Tony, but I don't want to use that example, but I think it's an example of the same thing, which is I played a game where I was playing a librarian or a sorcerer. I don't know if it had been renamed yet, in person with you, Jay, and some friends just over at your house.
It was sorcerer. It was sorcerer at that point.
Okay, but it was a phase at which most of what the sorcerer game was about tracking down scraps of magic that had been stolen from the library and taken out into the world. And so it was a lot of this meddling with other people's domains. I may be misremembering, but I had this.
It went through so many iterations.
I had this really like charged back and forth with another player in a scene where we ended up like, and Irene, I feel like we were also together for a very intense in-person game. We ended up being driven to like stand up and get in each other's faces and like really feel these like very abstract mechanics. That's like, well, I'm tracking a piece of writing across the map and like trying to get access to these particular subcircles on this fantastically complicated chart. And somehow that ended up like playing out in this like deeply embodied way. And I was like, oh, that's what 7-Part Pact is about, right? Like 7-Part Pact is about like, no. I want to be my little guy in my office, moving my pegs around this board. And instead I have to be like a person in the world. And that like sucks. And it's also super hot. And what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
I think similar things, Tony, happened when I was playing with you, and I was like, oh wait, this is somebody who actually cannot commit to anything. Like, and it was in my chest, right? It was in my body. I could not.
The only part of that encounter that I mentioned is that there was a moment where you and I had to pause and be like, "We're good, right?" And then we both were like, "Yeah, this is great." We just kept on going. That's all I've talked about from that experience. But it was a very similar experience of watching you.
Which, I mean, and then don't let me take too much time, but also happened in the game that Irene and I were in together. Another like lots of check-ins happened. I think lots of moments where you go like, oh, that was a step further than I was intending this to go. Like, is the dynamic that we've made as our pact, outside of the fiction of the pact, maybe is the dynamic we made as a group of people like gonna be able to carry that? But it does. So
yeah,
love
it. Irene, how about you?
I was thinking about this a lot because there's definitely, I feel like the sort of eureka revelation moment is like a fundamental part of the core loop, I think, of 7-Part Pact. It's like that's happening all the time, and also like I kept thinking of ones from other wizards. But I think for me, so yeah, I was playing a version of the Sorcerer that was hunting down little traces of magic and also kind of a wizard cop. And I was playing a character who, and also me as a player, both of us were not interested in that part of it and really wanted to make discoveries about magic. But the problem is every time we got close to making a discovery about magic, all of the other wizards would totally mess it up. And so like, you guys, like just started getting in everybody's business because please stop messing up my delicate experiments. But the bit that really I felt like, oh yeah, I'm sorcering, was when I finally did manage to get like a research project through and get to write in the grimoire. That's all I'd been wanting to do the entire game. And so getting to mess with the grimoire was just up there. And I remember specifically, Jay was like, cool, what do you want to do? And I was like, hey, there's a spell that I really liked that was in an earlier version of the game. You give it back.
Which spell was that?
It was theft.
Oh, right, theft.
And so, and you were like, well, here's the thing. The hand of power can do theft if you roll this one planet. I was like, okay, cool, we're good then. Because I wanted to be able to steal intangible objects again. And so, yeah, like the sort of discovery of how that still could work in the current framework of the game, and also getting to edit the grimoire just felt very Sorcerer to me and was definitely a highlight of that game. There were a lot of highlights though.
That the realization of like the fun part being really in the kind of like amassing and editing and spell casting was, I think seeing you experience that was really crucial for me going from the version you played to the current version of the Sorcerer. Was like seeing like, okay, because the problem I had for a long time was that for all the other wizards, the best you can hope for is to maintain the status quo, right? That's the thing that's come up all week with different people. And the sorcerer really doesn't want to be that. The sorcerer wants to be arrogant and megalomaniacal, and the sorcerer wants to be building something up. But how do you create the sensation of building something up while also kind of trying to hold true to the fact that you can't really get that much better than the status quo? And the thing that kind of made it click, I think, was like, I think seeing things like that, where like the excitement of kind of like getting the thing, like getting it to click, and like leaning into that and kind of having a sorcerer where it's like, yeah, you're special. You are the one who gets to build up. It's going to make other people's lives harder. You're going to pull resources from them to build your thing. And your thing at the end of it is like you're putting a footnote in the grimoire, right? Like it feels like a big thing for you because it feels satisfying, but also it's a very personal process.
Yeah. I think that's a great place to dive in. Like, because Shay, you got to experience this research mode for a few sessions this like one, and you mentioned earlier like there is some resonance with your actual life right now, and that was kind of the fun thing that came out in play. I feel like also too of like you started with understanding like, oh, this is an academic and here's what they're doing. And then there were these kind of deeper layers at which you realized kind of, oh, I've made choices that are driving me a certain way. But can you talk a little bit more about kind of like, because I don't even know we played together, like what your sorcerer is up to and kind of what the experience of the game in its current iteration was like.
Yeah, so I played a version of the like engine builder game that I don't think I played it with all of the bits and bobs that are in it now. When I was reading through,
I added a couple. Yeah,
I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see how those go. But yeah, I played an earlier version of the engine builder game, and very quickly I went, well, this is great. I can move my little guys around and like generate research, and I can tweak how I'm like moving things through this factory. But fundamentally, that's about like optimizing a productive thing, and not, as with so many of the other wizards, about staving off like an inevitable loss, right? That obviously like the Faustian is the big example of that, but even somebody like the Necromancer, I think the Mariner also, you're like running against these forces that are pushing you. And I don't know, I think there's a really interesting way where, because the games are all asymmetrical, not just in the structure of the board game, but also like asymmetrical in their difficulty. I as sorcerer was left with all of this time to like think about things and to make it like scheme for the future and to kind of distract myself like doodling philosophical arguments on the edges of things. And so pretty quickly I think I ended up with like this big weird thought experiment I was playing out about like what is a human, right? And I had like a familiar who I was trying to raise up to the status.
You had a homunculus that I think you called ape, and then you had a sentient ape that you called Guy or man, or something.
The monkey may have been named like mankind or something like that.
Yeah.
There's this ultimately self-confident guy in a tower who's like, look at mankind, the apes that they are. I am clearly higher than this monkey. But at the same time, I'm like fascinated with this question of like, yeah, can I pick at the edges of the world? Because I've got a lot of free time to think about whether or not I can pick at the edges of the world, and just to crawl through the grimoire, going like, well, what is the perfect spell to accomplish everything I want to do? And I think a lot of that comes back to very kind of mechanical game design differences, right? That like, there is pressure to keep up the research track, but it's a very different kind of pressure from the way that like the necromancer is trudging through the gates of the dead, or the warlock is balancing increasingly precarious arrangements of
effectively the only thing incentivizing, the only like fail state that happens if you don't do it, is that your arcanists will get bored and go to other domains. and then start building up little mini academies of their own. They'll start taking on students and gathering research and doing their own little knowledge trees. So it's effectively like you're effectively like a playground for amateur wizards, right? Like you're effectively running amateur wizard daycare over in your corner of it. Which I think is like that's it, right? Like that's all, as long as they're happy, as long as they're not causing problems for people, you can kind of do whatever you want beyond that, which I think exactly as you're saying, right? I want the sorcerer to feel like they've got the free time to fuck around. And also I want other wizards to get a little resentful and a little bitter about it, right?
Yeah. Damn, I'm doing all of this slogging and you're up there polishing your orb again.
100%.
El Zamarat the Great has written another treatise on the essential nature of the soul. Meanwhile, I'm way too busy getting the fucking the zombie lord out of the Ashen Gate again. Jesus Christ.
I think the other fun thing about Shay, like coming into that game, was you missed the first session, which created, and it was just like, yeah, the sorcerer is just in their tower doing sorcerer shit, and it created the perfect like, this person isn't even showing up, and there's a new wizard, and they're so busy with their stuff, and when you came into play, it just felt so perfect the way you picked up the character for that you'd have not been at the moot before. When there are all these new wizards showing up, we're like, we don't know what the fuck's going on.
Mhm.
And so no, it was great. So Irene, you said the version there was, did you play a version that was like a cop? Because I love the idea that one of you, like, that one version of the game was like you're an academic, and the other one is like you're the high school vice principal who's a disciplinarian and has to keep all these kids in line.
There was a little bit of that because it was also, when we just were talking about sort of the two types of games where almost everyone is playing this will get wildly out of control unless I scramble to keep it under control. That also was what I was doing. Like, it was every time anybody did magic, little traces of magic would pop up around, and they would cause massive problems if I wasn't constantly corralling them and trying to get, trying to use them for research. But also, if we ever ran out of them, then like magic would break, and that would be a problem for everyone. So because there were all of these big consequences that were sort of looming, and the consequences would kind of be pushed closer whenever anyone did anything, I had to get up in everyone's business all of the time.
And the problem was, right, and the reason why I changed it out of that, right, is because that was not a good play pattern, right? It was that I didn't want, and that was what was so hard about the sorcerers. It's like, you want a wizard who's engaging with magic, but by putting restrictions on when people cast spells, it made people more skittish to cast spells.
Mhm.
Because just the knowledge, like already you're struggling to understand the grimoire, and the worry that like, oh, and also if I cast this, I'm gonna piss Irene off, right? Like that like adds another level of like, oh, I don't know, it makes it a little. I mean, it was fine in our group because we were all experienced, but
in our game they just kept breaking magic.
yeah. But in a less experienced group, or like a mixed experienced group, it kind of served as a limiter there. So
Definitely.
I didn't want to have anything that got in the way of casting magic. I wanted it to feel like magic could just kind of happen. And also that, like, as the wizard of magic, you could also be doing magic to deal with your things.
No, you mentioned yesterday, Jay, and I think this is a good time to pick it up also too. Like, essentially, and you talked about it a little bit with this now, that essentially like the sage and the sorcerer had a lot of overlap, a lot of back and forth. And you kind of ended up breaking those in half as, oh, the sorcerer is looking to the future and trying to.
Oh, the sage is looking to the future. Yeah.
The sage is trying to look to the future, the inevitability of the pact, all those things. The sorcerer is looking at what has happened, documenting that, cataloging it, researching, and still building something, but they're building based on the past as opposed to grasping for the future like the sage does. That was on full display in our play of it. Like, that was 100% one of the earliest things that happened that mattered in the game was the sage wanting to cast the future, and Shay, your sorcerer kind of being like, I don't think we should do that, but whatever, do what you want, was a big part of it. Like, it came out very clearly and very quickly in it. And I think it drove that, and the Warlock and Faustian dueling over influence like drove a lot of our play in some really interesting ways. And it was really great to see like two very experienced characters or players in those character roles really kind of picking up on those themes and driving right away. Are you like, how satisfied are you? I mean, hopefully pretty because the game's funny, but like, how satisfied are you with the lines on that division? And having two people who have played, like, are there questions you have for like folks who have played it a number of times around kind of some of the final version of the design? Jade, that was a question for you.
Question for me. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
How satisfied are you with the finalized lines?
Jay. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I got pranked once again. I was like, this is such a involved question for Che.
No. Jay.
Look, girl. Yes, I understand. So I think that I'm pretty satisfied with the lines. I think that the thing that was hardest to tease out is like, what is actually the sorcerer doing as the watcher of the truth, right? What is the sorcerer doing in the celestial audience? Because for a long time, the answer was like being a pedant about magic. And that's not really, that wasn't good. It had some issues. It was like fun conceptually to be like, oh, well, the sorcerer is the rules guy. And like, I kind of wanted to preserve like a Wisher Theurgist fatalist style, like lore and rules divide. But the problem was that by saying, oh, the sorcerer interprets magic, that kind of, it was kind of like, look, like everyone interprets magic. The sorcerer was just the one who was doing it the most, I guess. And it wasn't very, it really limited the sorcerer in literally every single other context, right? It meant the sorcerer would just like be asleep at the wheel, except when someone was casting a spell, which one did wake up and like quibble over, like, and because that was their area of influence, it meant that there were some sorcerers who would kind of like, in a need to feel like they have control, kind of lean into it and like try to kind of like be too much of it. Like they'd be really persnickety because they wanted a feeling of action, and that was kind of their one moment. It didn't work. So where I ended up settling with the sorcerer is that the sorcerer is responsible for connecting like threads of the past together, connecting truths, which can be like truths that have been established in play, but they can also be like truths in lore, or kind of like it's basically doing a lot of the same connective tissue stuff the Sage is doing, but the Sages focus on like kind of like future plot lines and like ideas and like ways things could go, whereas the sorcerer is very focused on like bringing in text, building on precedent, trying to kind of like use what has happened previously as building blocks to kind of keep things grounded, right? So the difference being is that the Sage might be the one going like, oh, well, maybe this person is this other person's brother, or like, oh, well, wouldn't, like basically the Sage is doing a lot of like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if, and the sorcerer is doing a lot of like, well, let's also remember that, right? Like the sorcerer being like, well, are we thinking about this, right? Like, hey, do y'all remember that we did this other thing a month ago? Do you think that's going to affect what's happening now, right? So those kind of being the two sides of the coin, one being more speculative, and then the sorcerer being more about establishing and building on top of precedent.
Yeah. I also love that you essentially created the rule of cool GM and the rules as written GM also too, within those two things, right? Like that it's like,
oh yeah, totally.
Not that you're stuck on the raw, but like that you are like, okay, but cool, let's read what the book says and then talk about what that means, not just, no, it's a cool idea. If this person does this thing, is very much on display in that. I feel like
the sorcerer is also, I think, the best positioned to broadly interpret the text, and definitely when you're playing with a group of mixed experience levels, having the sorcerer be the facilitator means that they're kind of in a good position to like, oh, you're confused about your rules, well, let's go ask someone who can interpret the rules and like kind of be a font of that. That's just not their only function anymore.
Yeah. How did y'all feel about your time in the celestial audience for your versions of the game? Did y'all get a chance to dive into that much? Irene, let's start with you.
I was definitely, my celestial audience role when I was playing was still much more of the rules lawyer, I think. And honestly, I loved that. That's for me. Like,
as a Steve Jackson game developer, you loved the rules as written. I can't imagine.
what's good for the game as a whole, and I think that it's moved in a really like good direction. But also, I loved being the one who does the quibbles of what specifically happens when you do X and Y, but also Z is true.
The thing is that I just made it so that everyone can do that. So now you can do that regardless of which wizard you are. So that was
and I love that. Big fan of that. But I'm saying, like, as far as the celestial audience role went, like that's what I was doing at the time, and I got a big thing out of it. But yeah, lore keeping sounds cool too.
Awesome. Shay, how about you?
Yeah, the thing I was thinking about is that I think my experience with the celestial audience as the sorcerer, I understand the kind of past future dichotomy that's getting set up, but I think in my experience, the sorcerer, by virtue of being so historically oriented, also ends up having this very particular relationship to the future, which is so heavy. Right? Like, it is my job as the celestial audience in a way that sort of blends into my role as the sorcerer and head of the Pact in some cases and like all this stuff. But it is my job to be the one who says, like, listen, you can do whatever you want, but it seems to me that this is the way the dice are falling. You can interpret that spell however you want, but it seems to me that the fair read is to do this. And I think that is still a kind of rules lawyering, but it is like there's a way in which the sorcerer, thinking about wizard theory as fatalist, the sorcerer has become a fatalist, not in the sense of that game, although I think also maybe in the sense of that game, in the sense of being this person who has to be like, I'm just letting you know, there's nothing I can do about it, but there's a sword coming down.
Yeah.
Do as you know. And I think yeah, it's a great position to be in if you're introducing people who haven't played the game as extensively. I think it's a great position to be in if you're playing with a bunch of people who are very experienced with it, right? Because there's a real joy throughout Seven Part Pact in those moments of like, well, yeah. The mechanical rules are this one thing, and then there's also this like social weight of like, we're going to show up for the Pact. I've got to talk to you in a particular way. And the sorcerer feels very bound by like, what is the rhetorical style you expect from a sorcerer? What is the leadership style you expect from a sorcerer? In ways that blend the celestial audience and the wizard themselves. Wizard himself, I should say. No non-binary wizards here, of course.
Of course.
No, I also one of the things that's buried in the text for this wizard too, and we touched on this earlier, but what happens when people break Pact law? So we talked a little bit about like wizard court, what happens, but one of my favorite things about this, like, so for the Mariner, it's like if somebody wants to travel, you can enforce this thing, and you as the person are going to do it. One of my favorite things about breaking Pact law and the rules currently written is that your job as the sorcerer is to hand this section to the archmagus. Like, it's not like, hey, you have to run the court, or you have to. You may be the archmagus, and you may be the one doing it, but your job specifically in the rules as written when somebody breaks the Pact is to go like, like, here, this is for you, and thrust the procedure of court into the middle of things. I would love to hear from either of you, because I don't know when that evolved within the course of play, but I would love to talk a little bit more about Wizard Court and what y'all's experiences with that may have been. Did either of y'all have a tremendous, outstanding moment in court you want to bring up? Jay, you got one?
I don't know that I've ever led Wizard Court. I think I have been censured by Wizard Court.
But censure is nothing.
You can talk about any experience of Wizard Court. It does not mean you being the one handing it over.
I've been the Wizard Court defendant. I think, I had a session a while back where I was playing a warlock, and I was very involved in the life of the like young prince heir of Isha, and I was playing out this kind of like Arthur and Merlin, I will make you into a good king, all of this stuff. Dynamic. And I don't remember what it was that I did, but I went I in the process ended up stepping outside the bounds of Pact law in one way or another. And one of the things that really interested me about playing it out was how, at the end of the day, toothless the Pact actually is. Because it's like, if a rule tells me when this happens, create a greater foe of death, or when this happens, make a complication for another wizard. These are like material laws of the universe. If we are breaking those rules, we are like not playing 7-part Pact anymore, right? But when it comes to the Pact law stuff, it's like, well, officially you're supposed to be, disbarred for this. Your license might get revoked. But they gotta catch you first, right? And their hands are tied, and you're a rogue wizard. And there's a really interesting way that I think, even though the session I'm thinking of was before the sorcerer was told just to like hand things off. There's an interesting way that it's always kind of been a hand things off, right? It's always kind of been a like, you're supposed to do something here. It doesn't carry the weight that other rule violations, or not even rule violations, but other rules in the game might, because it's all in that diegetic space. I think about that a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Irene, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's the difference between a rule that says like, if you do this, you get this complication, versus a rule that says like, if you break a law of the Pact, another wizard can tell people that you've broken the law of the Pact, and then your other wizards can decide what they think is a just punishment for that, and that can range anywhere from literally nothing to kills you. And then once they've decided it, you can decide to tell them to go fuck themselves, and they just have to grab you and beat you up about it. And so there's so many levels of like, at any step of this process, something can happen that makes it so that it's toothless, right? There's just so many, because like ultimately it's I said this last time we talked about on the Faustian, but like it's a kangaroo court.
Yeah. Irene, any good kangaroo court moments for you?
The only one that comes to mind is, I think in the first campaign that I played, our very old Mondays game, Jay was playing a quite young sorcerer that would be later sage character, and I think I don't remember what the offense was, but sort of getting tried in court, the outcome ended up being corporal punishment, and there was just a lot of like back and forth about whether this was like beating a misbehaving child or punishing a man. And
yeah, I remember I think I got whipped by the warlock. Yeah.
And like just that like added level of like, sort of genders of wizard was a really fun thing to kind of go back and forth on, and everybody had different opinions on the man versus boy debate.
Yeah, no, that was good. I loved how it just felt so like, it was just such a it was such a disproportionate, dramatic, interesting scene. I think Wizard Court always leads to interesting things, even when you decide to just censure someone and then it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I also really love, there is a stepping outside the game section in the bottom of Wizard Court that I think is just also such an important part, because I think for...
Do you want to read it out loud?
For inexperienced game players, I think this is such a good part. Ultimately, the 7-part Pact is a dream of mad gods around the table. The trial system of Pact law is not a substitute for interpersonal conversations and trust between players. And when events happen that lead to the bleed of emotions between the wizards and people playing them, it's important to settle such concerns outside of the game system. Pact law is compelling to prosecute when it pushes the narrative forward, but if one player is upset at another player's actions, that is a matter to be handled beyond the game space. Because you see this happen in all kinds of games. And when there is not clear areas for control, like people's feelings are going to come under it, especially like as we've talked about just today and throughout the course of this week. When your feelings get in the middle of this, like when you're in the middle of like standing up and getting in someone's face and yelling at them in character, and they are frustrating the things that you're trying to do in your little game and in your character's life, like all those things can come up. And having something that just says, hey, by the way, this thing is not a way to handle that. Like that is a normal ass human conversation that you have to deal with. I'm curious, Jay, like I know you are an experienced enough designer that I'm sure this is something that like you had in mind, but how quickly did this part of the box need to be included for play testing?
I wrote it when I wrote the rest
when you
of
wrote
the
the section.
I think I probably wrote this part before I wrote several of the rules in this part, right? Like I think I probably one of the first paragraphs I wrote. Because it just was immediately like I don't like designing around problem players, right? That's the big thing, is like I don't want to design around someone who is going to play my game wrong on purpose. However, I do want to design around the well-meaning problem player, which is to say that like if there is someone who is earnestly trying to play the game, but by earnestly trying to play the game sucks ass and makes people not have fun, I want to make sure I am doing everything I can to like help that person get back on track. Right. And so this is one of those sections where it's like I can so easily see someone who is passionate and inexperienced locking onto wizard law and being like, you hurt my little guy, I'm gonna get you, and like trying to really prosecute them. And then when they lose the prosecution, being like heartbroken, being like, well, I just gonna try again, we're gonna run that back, I'm gonna do it again, third time's the charm, we're just gonna spend all moot prosecuting. And like I just wanted to kind of make sure that there was like I don't like to have those kinds of like out of game reminders, because I like to trust the intelligence of my players. But I felt in this specific spot, it felt like such a ripe place for getting your feelings hurt when you're experiencing too much bleed, that I wanted to kind of just help gently scoop up anyone who is poring over Pact law to try and resolve an interhuman dispute, to have a thing to catch them, right? To be like, hey, and let's get that back on track.
And I think especially, I would say for American players, or maybe North American, maybe fair also.
U.S. American players,
U.S. American, but I would say I think this is generally true of North American players, including Canadians.
I don't know enough I don't know enough Mexican.
I don't know enough, but I would say Canadians and U.S. Americans.
Yeah, for sure.
I think there's a tendency to try to think, oh, if there's something in the rules I can kind of do to adjust this person's behavior, I'll try that before I try having an honest conversation, right? This comes from people not understanding, like, and from trad models of play and other things like that. I think it's one of the reasons I like really wanted to highlight. I was pretty sure you had, if not developed this first, developed it early, because it is like people will take any route they can have to having an honest conversation with another human being about what's upsetting them. And if you give them any option to do that in play, they'll try it in play before they just do the simple thing of saying, hey, let's talk. So I think it's great. House of Dreams in the chat says they've watched entire LARP fall apart because this type of rule or conversation wasn't in place, and people trying to handle things in play that should just be handled as a conversation also too. So excellent job. I'm gonna pivot.
It's the trick of, I'll just say one last thing, which is just like, you've got safety tools, and then you've got a thing that kind of is dressed up a little bit like a safety tool, right? Which is like, it is saying like, when there is a conflict between two or more player characters, this is what you use to adjudicate. And it's not a safety tool. Pact law is the opposite of a safety tool. It is designed to be like, it is as unsafe as you can get, because it presumes guilt. It is wildly biased. It does not give corrective options. It sucks. It's punitive as hell. It's an anti-safety tool. And so it's putting a lot of trust to be like, I am putting my anti-safety tool inside the box of conversational tools that and like trust that you're giving each other. And I just need to make sure that people don't think that it lives outside the box. That's kind of the big thing. But go for it.
That's great. Tex Watson said they asked you this yesterday, but they think it's a good question for stream, and I think they're right. That's why I'm bringing it up. And that is, and it's a 2-level question. So I want to ask that both our guest wizards, but also you, Jay. We're going to start with our guest wizards and then come back over to you, about the amount of ideation that people do when they're building character creation before you actually get to the first session of play. And this would, I think, JB, for you in a little bit more of a design mode. But once you knew you were playing the Sorcerer, before you sat down with your group, how much ideation did you do around picking the different character options and the type of wizard you wanted to play? Or did you just kind of show up, make choices, and see what happened? Irene, let's start with you.
Yeah, first, hi Watson. Second, yeah, I did very little. I love character creation in 7-Part Pact because it sort of guides you, and I think that the emergent characters that show up are super interesting, and I didn't want to like hamstring myself by already having a big plan. I knew two things going into playing the Sorcerer. I knew I wanted to play an older wizard. I'd played a wizard who was younger last game, and I wanted to see how age changed the social dynamic. And I was interested as an older wizard in sort of mentoring younger wizards. Those were the only two things that I vaguely thought about. And then I sort of let all of the things that looked interesting and fun to me when I was reading tell me what kind of guy I'd be.
Yeah. Love it. Shay, how about you?
Yeah, I think on the one hand, my answer is pretty similar. The most I have ever like looked at a playbook ahead of time for the Import Pact is like on the bus over to somebody's house on my phone.
Somebody's.
Yeah, well,
Could be anybody's, really.
Sometimes other people's houses. And also, and this is maybe not the most imaginative answer, I have 7 wizards, and they are real. You know, it's like I think that this is a game that, especially playing it for so long, led to me like I have an image of the Faustian in my head. I have an image of my warlock in my head. And one of the joys of playing new campaigns or new sessions is to say, I sort of know when I'm given those like life path style questions at the top, I know what's going to be cool to me. But I also know that by the end of session 2 or session 3, the play of the stars and the decisions that are being made around the table are going to warp this like stock character of a whatever into somebody totally unrecognizable. And so yeah, you know, I think it's interesting because the game does so much, both in terms of like generating an interesting character for you in the moment, and then also saying like you're going to start with a very vague image of a wizard, and then they are going to be super specific by the end of month 2.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of the genius of this, and Jay, we'll kick it over to you in just a second, is like each of the prompts in some of the initial parts under like humors and temperament, they're both telling you something about you and then asking you to interpret it. They're not saying, what do you want to do? It's saying like
For example, Spearholm University sits at the base of your tower, and the students and professors there seek to uncover the true nature of magic. Do you A, tolerate them as useful tools, or B, genuinely support their academic endeavors?
Yeah, you're asserting, like the game is asserting the fact, here is the university, it sits at the base of your tower. You as a wizard are choosing, do you do this or do you do that? Like how do you engage with them? And that like that mixed like, hey, you have choice, but also you're taking in is such a strength of play. And so, Jay, as we kick it over to you, like tell us a little bit about the development of that character choice process and the amount of ideation you kind of went through in playtesting, I'm sure, but also even outside of that to refine these questions and choices.
Yeah, the questions, especially those first 6 questions, went through a ton of iteration, especially because you're absolutely right. They're doing the really critical thing of teaching you lore in order. So there's questions that I can't ask until I ask other questions because I need you to know what a word means before I use it again. I try to make sure that for each wizard, if they have any made up words in their world, right? If it's like for the Hierophant, right, they've got a god, right? They've got Ithax. For the Sorcerer, there's Spearholm. I try to make sure that the made up words get explained in those first 6 questions so that like you learn them really early and then it's reinforced in the rest of the text. But like establishing your character. Like, here are the things not only that are shaping your personality, but also like, here's the world building chunks that I'm presupposing and I'm throwing at you for you to think about. I think you kind of gotta just fill out the part one of the codex before you can start thinking about your character. I do think once you do that, you can ideate as much as you want. I think the best thing to do is, once you know what wizard you want to be, just fill out part one and then daydream as much as you want to. I would really strongly discourage you from doing a ton of daydreaming and then trying to fill out the codex. That sounds really hard. I think you can do it. I think you'll feel a lot of frustration. My camera's
It's excited.
I think that it would feel really frustrating to try and like have a sorcerer in your head and then try to pattern fit it into 7-part Pact. But the nice thing is that this is a game this is not meant for. There's a lot of tabletop RPGs, jamless ones, that kind of presume like, oh, we're all sitting around the table and making characters and talking to each other about the process. 7-part Pact is a game that encourages prep. If you want to make your wizard and go sit alone with your wizard for many days and many nights and develop a feverish fondness for them, you can do that, and that's okay. Just get ready for the fact that like one of the things I don't remember who made this observation. It may have been one of the two of you, but there's a quality that 7-part Pact has sometimes where you think of just the coolest motherfucker you can, and you're like, I've got this really cool dude in my head. And then you show up at the table and everyone else also has a really cool dude. And you're like, fuck, they're also really cool.
All these dudes are cool.
All these dudes are cool. I thought I was going to be the coolest dude at the table for sure because I'm so cool. Turns out they're all sick as hell. And so, like, I do think developing, like, you shouldn't think of your character as a good person, probably. But I do think thinking of your character as a badass, while not necessary, is really fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun angle to bring to the game.
And something we haven't touched on is that when you're making these choices, they are assigning you like stats, right? Like you're getting pluses to earth or like to one of the elements. And which is funny because like 7 days, we really haven't touched on that at all.
Which... the elements are part of magic, right?
No, but I'm just meaning like we haven't touched on mechanically how any of that works. Like we have not talked about casting. We talked about what spells people cast. We haven't talked about casting a spell. Maybe we do that in the next 30 minutes. Maybe not. Stick around to find out. But like to me, even as I was doing character creation, like I didn't really know exactly what they meant yet. Like I knew I was getting them or not getting them, and I was just there is like the board gamer / recovering power gamer in me is like, do I spread these out? Do I stack them deep? Like really, at the end of the day, doesn't matter. Like, but it feels like you're making a choice that's very powerful when at the end of the day, the narrative components mattered way more to me than any of the +1 fire, +1. Like none of that came out really mattering to me much at the end. Even though very early on in those first 6 questions, I was like very closely tracking it.
Yeah, there's even the if at any point you decide you want to change your answers, you can.
Yeah.
So if you decide you don't like how you answered those first 6 questions, you can go back and adjust them. I goddamn never see people doing that, but like you can, it doesn't. The game is not negatively impacted if you decide midway through a month that actually you should have Air 4 instead of Air 1.
Yeah.
It just doesn't meaningfully warp the game if you do that. Maybe if you try to like do that mid-scene, if you're like tactically reconfiguring your relationship with the world around you to like get wards and different elements at different moments, that might be something. But I also feel like that's crazy. And I do think that your other players are allowed to hit you with sticks if you try that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say that's the one place that I've found it bites so hard, right? Where the thing that you have totally forgotten about. Yes, I know I'm good at fire, and so I'm like trying to imagine ways to do spells with fire because it's better. But if I've got to do it with air, that's fine. I'll just roll 2 dice instead of 4. It's okay. And then you try and cast a spell against another wizard, and you go, you have water 4? Wow, right? And you have this moment of like, all of these very small numbers are just going to absolutely shut you down. And I actually think there's a I don't know. I think it's a sleek system in part because it doesn't feel possible to optimize. It only feels possible to break bad.
Yeah. Well, and I
Yeah.
would say, like, playing a Mariner, I was like, should water be my highest? Because that's like, I'm the Mariner, and it doesn't matter. Like, you could have nothing in water, and it wouldn't prevent you from being the Mariner.
Mhm.
I
It's
think
it's
my
great.
Mariner had 0 water, actually.
I played low water mariners, and like
Yeah.
it's relevant if, like, I don't know, I guess if you're like trying in particular to like build a lot of boats, then it might matter to have
Right.
higher water. If you're like trying to build ensorcelled boats, I can see that being relevant.
But
But like, I don't know, torture your apprentice and make a magical focus that allows you to double your I don't know, figure it out. You're
Yeah.
smart.
No, that's great. We've got a couple good questions that have come in. We will come back. Brewer has officially asked, "How do you cast a big spell?" We will talk about it because it also makes sense to talk about it, I think, with the Sorcerer too. But in any previous iterations of the Sorcerer, this comes from Vic. Did any of Wizards successfully climb out of the game?
No, God no. Jesus Christ.
Is this the royal flush of being the Sorcerer?
It was even more than that. It was like, I think it was something like every time you build a level, you go like you're building a tower, and like every 10 sessions of gameplay, you complete one level of a tower. Once you've like completed like 100,000 of them, you can like attempt a pro. It was insane. It was something like so utterly disconnected from what was going on in the game. It wasn't good. It'll be a great one-page lyric game someday
Yeah.
that me and Sage tomorrow will do as like a little anthology or something.
Where you have to basically be like, all right, we're going to talk to the sage. We're going to agree to time skip this far into the future.
It
so
was
I'll
not.
have
I mean,
built this many layers.
so the whole joke of it, the whole joke was specifically that like to escape the. Oh my god! I mean, again, I cut this for a reason, but to escape the pact, you had to convince the player who was playing you that you were the real them and they were actually the wizard, and you had to like tulpa yourself into their mind.
Wow, so good. New stretch goal.
No.
Brewer has asked, how do you create a big spell? Let's talk about
How do you cast
spell casting, because we actually have not yet,
Yeah.
which is a little wild. Jay, do you want to tackle that, or do you want to kick it over to one of our guests?
Oh, I mean, I feel like it would be kind of. I feel like the two of you could explain how to cast a spell. You both know it well enough, but if you would rather, I can also. Let's either of you are championing the bit, but I guess I'll give a dummy version, and the two of you can correct me or tell me interesting details. I say a fact wrong on purpose to test you. No, just like point out interesting things if I forget to mention them. But the way you cast a spell is any spell in the grimoire. First you find the spell and you look at what the limits of it are, which are things like, hey, you need to be making eye contact with the person. The person needs to be cool with it. This will wear off by daybreak, those sorts of things. There's a consequence that will happen if you don't do those, if you don't hold to those limits, but like you don't have to hold to those limits. Then you figure out the import and the element. The element determines how many dice you are rolling to cast that spell. So if you are casting with fire and you have a 3 in fire, you roll 3 dice. If you have 1 in water, you roll 1 dice, etc. And then import determines the size of the dice. So personal import are d6, arcane import is d8, mighty import is d10, mythic import is d12. The numbers on the dice would correlate with specific symbols, meaning that as the dice size grows larger, you get kind of weird, rarer symbols, but also the odds of getting really critical early symbols goes down, right? So if you know that you need a Jupiter, you want to be rolling smaller dice. And if you want to try and get a Neptune, you know you want to be rolling larger dice. And then you roll the dice. There's a whole bunch of situations where you can get more dice, or you can re-roll dice, or you can, take it. You can do take backsies. But you roll the dice, you see which symbols you got, and those correlate with options that kind of determine what the spell does, right? So if you are trying to hit someone with a bolt of power, you are like, okay, this bombardment is personal import. It's a bolt. I'm just hurling it at them. I'm making it out of fire because there's a candle nearby, so I'm pulling the fire and throwing it at them. And that means I'm going to roll 3d6, and that will get me 3 particular symbols, which means that the spell is able to pierce through their armor. It's enough to kill them, and I'm fast about it, that kind of thing.
Awesome.
And then it spirals outwards from there.
Mhm.
Wards, which Che was referencing earlier, wizards have wards, which are equal to their spell, their elemental circle +1. So if you have 3 in water, your water ward is 4, which means that if someone casts a spell directly onto you using water, you get to negate 4 of the symbols they roll, which is huge. It basically takes the spell, it means the spell needs to roll incredibly well to do anything, and it will do the worst of the things it could do, right? It's that the wizard gets to pick through and prevent most of what happens. Wards are kind of the nuclear deterrent of the game, because they're more than a wizard's element, which means that it's really rare that a wizard has protection against everything a little bit, and even Ward 1 is pretty huge. You have to be pretty missized for wards to be irrelevant, and it just kind of makes it really hard for wizards to reliably cast magic directly onto each other, which just kind of keeps the wizard duels a little sane, just because it makes everyone a little nervous about trying to hit each other with fireballs, which is a valuable quality for wizards to have in the game. Does that feel inclusive of your experience with spells? Is there anything that I forgot to mention?
I think the only thing that I would mention is also sort of, so there's a sort of null face on the die, which is salt. And each wizard interprets the presence of salt differently according to their own ruling planet. So each individual wizard role has kind of a flavor for their spells that always happens.
Yep.
But the flavor is
mostly
always
happens.
salt.
Yeah.
And so
Mostly happens.
Each wizard also has their own little spin on it, where it's like the necromancer can turn any symbol into Saturn, which Saturn is a kind of downside symbol often. It kind of like sucks, it like is pestilent, it's rotting, it's corpse-like, but like that's helpful often. You know, if you're trying to like hurt someone, turning symbols into Saturn can be valuable. The Mariner gets an additional die if they're the only wizard of the Pact present in the scene. Things like that. So like they kind of each have their own little thing that gives them a little Benny if they're kind of, or like a different way to take a different incentive and a different way to engage with the dice based on what's going on.
Yeah. Shay, let's talk through as if you were going to cast your favorite spell. Pick a spell, your favorite spell from the Grimoire. Jay, I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to have you pick whatever the dice are. We're going to pretend that you have a 3 and whatever you're casting with. Jay's going to say random symbols, and then we're going to interpret from there.
Sounds good.
I am speedily trying to get to a grimoire. Give me just a second.
That's fine.
Hey, you don't have the grimoires on lock?
You don't
No,
you
I
don't
always-
already have the grimoire open? Look at that. Print it out. Ready to go.
Yeah, bound
In human flesh.
Yeah, inhuman.
I was gonna say actually, Irene, I feel like you should deserve to brag on this stream for like hand binding everyone's wizard books.
Oh, talk about it.
I was gonna bring it up later. Yeah, don't worry.
Irene, show that off so that you can vamp for Che while Che.
Yeah, while Shay's looking
I
at it.
mean,
So, here's the grimoire of the Pact. Draft 3, October 2024.
Jesus Christ, 2 years ago.
Yeah, this is the it's Coptic stitched. And it also has this fun little annotation we talked about earlier on Hand of Power, which says you can steal ideas out of people's heads in case you're random.
Yum.
And then there's my extra discovery that I made to it as well.
Love it.
We good, Shay?
I've chosen a spell.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
J Dragon, I'm turning you into a frog.
Fuck.
I am casting Mimesis. What should we do as far as elemental circles?
Well, you've got 3 in everything on account of your academic knowledge.
Yeah.
So a frog, but what element is turning someone into a frog?
So I'm looking at the options here. I consult with earth if it's any beast that lives on land, water when any beast that dwells within water, air
Or
any beast.
prefers the company of water.
Well, yes, this is a good point. This is an immediate question, right? Amphibians, not 100% clear.
Yeah, because a lot of them just live in the mud, which is wet dirt.
Tony, do you think that amphibians, a frog is a beast which lives on land, or is a beast which dwells within water or prefers the company of water?
I think it prefers the company of water. I think it is. If you had said toad, I think we might have an argument for Earth here.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, so I do think it needs to be cast with water, not that it particularly matters. Yeah, and then just to return actually to the limits. Contact. I've got to physically touch you, so I'm reaching all the way to your apartment. Familiarity. I go to a scene of frog. I'll tell you, I've seen frogs. And then ablution, which means if you can take a nice bath, you're not a frog anymore.
I'll be doing that after this, no matter what. So.
I do think, unfortunately, this is probably just a personal impulse.
Well, you can choose to roll higher if you want to.
I mean,
you can always roll higher.
Yeah, but I feel like I would want to deserve it. Here's
the question: does it matter that Jay is a dragon? Does that change it to arcane?
No, because it's
just about the creature we're going to. Okay, I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
Let's pop it up to arcane. This is magic frog. I mean, it's always going to be a magic frog, but I'll roll a little higher.
All right. Yeah. You have rolled. I actually did just roll for you. You rolled Mars, Venus, and Luna. So what qualia does this imbue me with of a frog? Because you did not roll Jupiter, which Jupiter being the one necessary to give me physical qualities of a frog. So you've in a property held by the physicality of the form. So you've not given me the appearance of a frog. You've not physically turned me into a frog, but you have given me Mars, Venus, and Luna. So what is Mars?
Mars is a physical skill or ability of transfigured form, such as its speed, vision, or might.
Right.
You gotta jump high, right?
Yeah.
This is they're the one thing they do.
You've given me the big jump.
I've given you the big jump. Venus is an emotion or instinct held by the transfigured form, such as passion, wit, or hunger. I don't know that frogs have.
I got a pitch, but yeah, Irene, go first.
Okay, tell me about the emotional lives of frogs.
So they have a sort of an instinct, which is that, oh, look, there's a fly. I'm going to try to bite it out of the air. It's a hunger. And it's a reflexive hunger.
Yeah, fly hunger.
So yeah, I think she tries to bite bugs out of the air.
Now, to me, biting things out of the air is a physical quality, though.
No, because it's not that I can. It's that I have the instinct.
That I want
to.
It's not that I'm able to, it's that I feel the impulse to, which is a knowledge, right?
It's striving.
It's an instinct.
And I've set myself up for failure here because I've already revealed that I did not have in my heart any true facts about the emotional lives.
Yeah, but you've already failed a little bit.
Luna gives you wisdom or knowledge held by the transfigured form, such as a wizard's secrets, a king's will, or a cat's secret language. What does a frog know?
The frog's secret language? Do frogs have a secret language?
They definitely got songs.
Yeah, I about to say the songs of the frogs feels good.
Yeah.
Frogs have ballads. Frogs have like odes and epics and oral histories in verse, for sure.
Mhm.
What do you have warts?
No.
Okay, cool.
God,
Oh, that's too
no.
bad.
I'm entirely vulnerable to your machinations. If I had but one ward, I would cancel out the tongue instinct thing and just keep the big jump and the frog ballad knowledge. But I don't, so I'll take the good with the bad.
I think I've made you like a frog ballerina, right? Like you
No,
are.
you have not given me any of the physical properties of a frog.
Jumping.
You've not turned
Not
me.
the physical properties.
Yeah, you've not turned me into a frog. I just am me, but I now know these things until I next take a bath.
Well, you have the capacity though, right? You are a frog ballerina in the sense that Spider-Man is a Spider-Man.
Yes, absolutely.
That is 100% true.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Yes. I can go perform the Nutcracker with unerring accuracy.
Go to your local theater this July 31st to see Jay in Spider-Man, whatever this one is called.
The frog arena. Yeah, so that's and then Che, you've seen the results of this magic. Before you cast it, you have the right of refusal. You can refuse to cast this spell and accept that you did not get the results you wanted. Do you, or do you go forward with it?
No, I'm enchanted by the existence of this frog artist, right? Or of this frog artist, you know?
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That's great. Is there I think we've hit all of the questions that we have in chat. Are there things that you as our guest want to talk about from the Sorcerer? Or Jay, are there things that you want us to cover in our last few minutes together? Otherwise we can let Irene cast a spell.
I mean, I had a thing I wanted to talk about.
Let's talk about the thing. That sounds more important.
Experience, which is not quite a spell. It sort of functioned, though, as not a 7-part Pact spell, but as a spell in the sort of sense of ritual magic of our world. Which is, so I think, basically, most of the time I've spent playing 7-part Pact, I have been doing something with my hands. And of that, mostly it's been related to the game. I have been making physical game aids, and the weekend that I played as the Sorcerer, I spent hand binding everyone's codex and the rulebook and the grimoire. So they're all stitched by me, by hand. I had an awl. I was punching holes in the paper. And the act of like making books for my other wizards felt it made me feel so connected to everyone else in the game, and also like to the Sorcerer, to being like, I am the guy of the tomes, and this is like my duty and my gift to the rest of the Pact. And it just felt really cool and immersive. And you know, the first arc that I was playing, I was hand polishing 3D printed dice that I had designed before there were any other like 3-dimensional astral dice for 7-part Pact.
And you also made my wooden orrery, the wooden orrery that I use.
I did construct an orrery. So yeah, and like, but the dice, like every time I would cast them physically, like it felt so arcane. So like my encouragement to everyone who's going to get to finally touch the physical versions of this game, and God, I'm so excited to get to do that. But my encouragement to everyone else is like, not just play with the physical things that are at your disposal, but like create stuff. The act of making things that serve your wizardly experience is going to connect you more to it in a way that I cannot articulate better than that.
No, I think that's great. And we really haven't touched on that craft element outside of a few conversations. Like I love hearing that, because like we got to see some of like Zedek's art earlier this week. We talked about Jen like making food. We didn't necessarily hit on the fact that like the way that so many people dressed up and showed up for this game. Like even though I think at our play, like I don't remember anybody particularly dressing up. I definitely like chose my outfit based on the fact that I was the mariner every night when I was coming over, and just leaned a little bit into that. Like it invites you to engage in the physicality of the space of play in a really distinctive way. And it's really cool to see people go whole ham on that like you did. And so
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, wizard madness.
I
Wizard
learned how to
madness.
fold leaf stuff for Jay's armor.
Yeah. You can help me with the patch notes.
Awesome. Any other final thoughts that we have?
Yeah, I think thank you all so much for doing this. This has been a wild week of talking about wizards. It's been fun kind of getting to go through every single one of them, talk about different ways. I think the Sorcerer is probably one of the harder ones to talk about in depth just because it's still, I don't know, I think that like there's not much that we haven't already said that isn't true about the Sorcerer. I think that there's something very fun about how at each level of the Pact you get kind of like a weirder and weirder relationship to the rest of it. Till with the Sorcerer, you've got someone who's just extracting, who's just like fracking the other domains. Yeah. I think I'm really excited to see it all play out with the proper components and with my friends. It's weird. This is the first game I think that I've been working on and I still want to play it, which I've never felt that way before at this stage of making a game, let alone 4 years in. So yeah, that's a kind of a beautiful feeling. And it's cool getting to be here with the Final Wizard, having it be two people who I've been playing this game with for several years now, and two people who I value tremendously. So it really feels very cool. So yeah.
Also, I'll say your fellow wizards don't appreciate the fracking. And
They don't
will send the storm your guy is riding in back to your fucking island if they have to. So
they don't love the fracking for some reason.
So, yeah. Yeah, this was absolutely great. Was so excited that y'all were kind of our anchor for the week. Was really excited to talk to everybody else that we had on also too. It's a great partnership with Steve Jackson Games and Possum Creek. Has been absolutely delightful. Jay has been talking to me about this game and invited me to play it so many times we could just not get our schedules lined up till this year. So I'm looking forward to more playthrough when I get my own copy. If you haven't gone to back it yet, go to ttrpg.link/7pp. Check out what it's up to. It's also been great to have everybody who's been here in chat. We have folks who have made it to every single one. We have folks who've only hopped in and hopped out. All the videos are available over on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/+1exp. You can go check that out if you want to. Irene, if folks want to find you on the internet, where's the best place to find you?
If you would like to find me on the internet, Space Job RPG on Blue Sky. I used to be Space Job on TikTok, but I don't use that site except to post drag videos now. So if you want to see the Wesley Crusher ukulele thing, go.
That's great. Awesome, Shay.
S-Che, S-CHE on Blue Sky, or S-Che with no dash on itch.io for some of my older design stuff. I have a Patreon. You can find it through my Blue Sky. It's like a special reward for following Treasure Hunt. But yeah.
Awesome. If you appreciated Wizard Week and want to support the work that we do here, 2 easy ways you can do that. Head over to +1exp. Check out the games we have there. Anything you buy is going to go directly to supporting that creator and supporting the work that we do. The best thing you can do to check that out is go to rpgzine.club or click on the RPG Zine Club tab. When you get there, every month we release 2 new games by emerging designers. We do 1 story game, 1 adventure game, but it helps power everything we do here. And year 2 just won an Ennie. So we will be at Gen Con next week at booth 449 with our friends at IPR and a whole bunch of other folks. Jay will be at the Steve Jackson Games booth. Irene, are you going to be at the Steve Jackson Games booth?
Very briefly, I'm mostly running RPG events, but I'll be around.
Che, you coming with us? You gonna come hang out?
I'm going to be in an island in Lake Michigan.
That sounds better.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, the other thing you can do if you want to support us is go check out the Brindleverse triptych that's live right now also too. But if you have not gone to back this game yet, if at some point we've talked this entire week and you've showed up to all 7 episodes, what are you doing? Go to ttrpg.link/7pp. Back the game. You can get it. Just the PDF is $30. You're going to get so much content, so many great things. There's previews of everything up already. And you can go check out all the cool stuff we've been talking about all week long. There isn't a wizard moot tomorrow, but there are going to be tons of wizard moots in the future as more and more people play this game. I hope that you'll be one of them. And so we'll see all y'all at the next moot. Bye, everybody.
Bye.